Welcome back, everybody. So in the last video, we set up the routing in our app. So we're at least able to click on the cells and go into all of the screens and move around our app now. And I said that was going to be the last video in this section, but since then, which has literally been less than 24 hours, I did a lot of research on Swift data, and I posted something on Twitter about possibly not using Swift data, and I had a lot of feedback, lots of messages about using Swift data. And I think Swift data is actually relevant enough now that I probably should cover it in this course. And it's actually relatively easy to use. So I've decided within the last 12 hours that we're going to add Swift data to parts of this application as well, so that you guys can see, firstly, the basics of how to use it, but also how to use it with all of the architecture that we're going to add later on. I know that at some point, if I don't do it, I will get 100 questions from you guys about how do I use Swift data with this? So we might as well just address it up front. But in order to do that, we're going to actually add one more part to our application. So if I go to the chats tab here, we're going to have a recents row. So just a quick little scroll view that is a horizontal scroll view. And what we're going to do is basically anytime the user clicks into any avatar chat, whether or not it's actually a chat that they're chatting in. So anytime they just click on some avatar, we'll add that avatar to their recents. So this is sort of like on Instagram, where if you go to the Explore tab and you just search for a person, you click on their profile, now they're in your recents search history. This will be just our recents avatar history. And when we get into the data section of this course, we're going to save this in Swift data, because it's not really that important that we need to put it into a backend, but it is good to just have this data on the device. So we'll very simply just throw this into Swift data in a future video. But before we end the UI section of this course, let's go ahead and just build out this row really quickly. I'm going to jump into our chats view. Firstly, when we look at this, I think that we forgot to add one loading state to this view. So if there are no chats, what does the view actually look like here? Exactly. So let's fix that quick. We're going to do an if chats.isEmpty. We'll put on the screen a text that says your chats will appear here. Let's make that dot foreground style of secondary, font of title, maybe title 3, and remove list row formatting. Let's give it a frame with a max width of infinity and a multi-line text alignment of center. I think that looks fine, and then let's just give it maybe some padding. Let's do 40. Just to push it out a little bit. We'll say else, and in the else we'll actually put our chat rows, just so that we handle that state without any chats. Let's go ahead and cut this. I'll move it down to outside of the view. We'll do a private var. We'll call this the chats section of type some view, open the brackets. And actually, let's go ahead and cut this and make a section. We'll paste it in the section, and then the header will be text that says chats. Now let's put the chats section on the screen. Great. And let's create our other section now with the recents. I will revert this back to having actually some data. And we're going to create one more section. So let's do a section here with the header. Header is going to say recents, and then the section is going to be a scroll view. We'll make it horizontal. We'll give the scroll view a fixed frame. We'll give it a height of 120. Then in here, let's do a lazy V stack, or a lazy H stack, sorry. Let's do spacing of 8 and open the brackets. We're doing lazy because we don't know how many recents we're going to have, so at least they will lazily load just in case. Let's get some data for this array. So let's call this RecentAvatars, array of avatar model. And we'll go ahead and call avatar model.mocks. I'm only going to display this section if there are mocks here. So we'll just do if RecentAvatars is empty. And we'll do it if it's not empty, put the section on the screen. Each of these we're going to loop on for each. Let's go loop on the for each recent avatars. I believe these are hashable, so we'll do id \self. And then in here, let's go ahead and add in our cell. Each of these cells, as we can see here, are going to have an image and a name. let's make sure that we have the image. So we'll say if let avatar.image profile image name. If we do, let's put a vstack with spacing of 8, and I'll put a quick image loader view. Let's do a URL string from the, let's call this if let image name equals. Let's go ahead and pass the image name. Let's make sure our images have an aspect ratio of 1 and fit that area, and then we'll call clip shape with a circle just to go ahead and make them all circles. Below this, let's put some text that has the avatar.name, which is optional, so we'll do otherwise a blank string. Let's give the text a font of caption and a foreground style of secondary. Lastly, on the entire scroll view, so this is whole scroll view is one list row cell right now. Let's go ahead and just remove list row formatting. And then inside the scroll view, we'll do a little bit of extra padding on the top. Let's go 16 or 12. Let's do 12. And just like that, we have our recents section in here. Let's reload this, make sure it is scrollable. Here we go. Let's go ahead and call scroll indicators.hidden. Perfect. Lastly, let's make these clickable. So each cell on the vstack, I'm going to make this any button. Maybe the plane for these buttons. See how that looks. Plane looks decent. Maybe press. See what that looks like. What about highlight? No. Let's go ahead and do plain. So our default, so we actually don't need to input one. And then let's just go and add an action. So here we have on chat pressed. Let's create one more called on avatar pressed, which is actually going to be an avatar, type avatar model, and we'll pass in the avatar.avatar ID. Up here from our code, we'll call on avatar pressed, pass in the avatar. Let's click it, make sure it works. Perfect. And then let's go and cut this. Well, let's actually cut the section, but not the if statement. And we'll move down here and we'll say private var recents section of type some view. Paste that in. And go ahead and put the recents section up on the screen, just like that. Cool. And just like that, we have now added our recents section. That was pretty easy to do. And then later in this course, we're going to actually go ahead and add a Swift data database just for this. I will point out though, even though we're using Swift data, we are not going to use the query macro. You'll notice that this is at state, this is not at query, because I do not want the data source coupled to this. I want to be able to mock this data, I want to be able to test this data, and I don't want my database coupled to my view layer of the code. But we'll talk about all of that stuff when we get to it in the next section of this course. Let's wrap up this video with a option command C. Let's go ahead and make this a feature, and we'll call this the recent avatars. Let's stage it, commit it, push it up to GitHub. We are now done with this section. In the next video, we'll do a quick little recap and then move on to some of the actual architecture in our app. Thank you guys for watching.